They thought Earth was primitive until silence began swallowing their fleets. We didn't conquer with weapons, we weaponized memory. The empires built on forgetting crumbled when we taught the galaxy to remember. Now, something older than war has awakened, and it doesn't erase bodies, it erases stories. Earth stands not as a superpower, but as the only voice loud enough to stop the silence. Subscribe now, and don't miss how it ends. They used to call us harmless. In the vast, dusty archives of the Adrax Empire, Earth was labeled with a clinical indifference, Class 7, low threat, low value. A backwater rock spinning at the edge of the Milky Way. A noisy, tribal species of emotional bipeds obsessed with status, food chemistry, war stories, and mating dances. No advanced energy tech, no interstellar propulsion, no coherent planetary governance. Just radiation, pop music, and too much atmosphere. So the Empire watched us, briefly, cataloged our broadcasts, poked the edges of our magnetosphere, and then moved on. That was their first mistake. The second came 10 years later, when one of their long-range patrol scouts passed near the Sol system and stopped transmitting. No panic followed, ships go dark. Flares, asteroids, subspace distortion, pirates. Another retrieval ship was sent. Then another. 12 vessels. Gone. No distress signals. No debris. No indication that they'd even arrived. The Empire began to frown for the first time in centuries. Earth, they concluded, was being protected. Or worse, had learned to protect itself. They deployed drones, deep-range scans, discrete orbital satellites. What they found was impossible. Nothing. No evidence of battle. No residual radiation. No ship trails. But Earth's orbit was clean. Too clean. As if someone had erased the clutter of thousands of orbiting objects. Satellites. Debris. Stations. And in their place? Empty silence. That was when the whispers began. Not on Earth, but within the Adrax High Council. A term resurfaced. Quantum ghosting. A theoretical concept, once discarded. The idea that something could exist, visibly, but never interact unless it chose to. The Empire had mocked the idea. Now they were seeing it. On the surface, humanity remained unchanged. But beneath it, something had shifted. In a research facility buried under 500 meters of Icelandic volcanic rock, Marcus Reeve, systems analyst, typed through his morning shift in the cold hum of filtered lights. Just another low-tier technician among thousands who monitored planetary deep-spectrum telemetry, looking for anomalies that didn't exist. Except this time, one did. A signal. Subtle. A mirrored ping from deep orbit, like a scanner had hit Earth, and Earth had scanned back. But that was impossible. No known human tech could bounce back a signal at that encryption level. And it hadn't come through the facility's official systems. It had bypassed them entirely, then buried itself in the ambient electromagnetic noise. Reeve leaned in. Fingers flew across keys, activating hidden filters. Waveform decoders. Quantum fractal scrubbers. The result was worse than impossible. The return ping was human. Not from orbit. From somewhere beneath the Pacific Shelf. A response carefully disguised as ambient radiation, buried beneath 20 layers of frequency camouflage. He reached for the comm line. "Sir, we've got something." "I think." We pinged back. Silence. Then a voice, cold, flat, professional. "You weren't supposed to see that, Reeve." The line died. The lights dimmed. And Reeve sat frozen, suddenly aware that his facility wasn't just a bunker. It was a firewall. A containment cell. Up in orbit, something else watched. It didn't belong to the Adrax. It didn't belong to any known registry of galactic civilization. It hovered above Earth's exosphere, perfectly still, dark, angular, alive with a geometry not quite Euclidean. And inside it, in a chamber shaped like a tear frozen midfall, a woman sat. Her skin was pale, almost translucent. Her eyes, golden and softly glowing, blinked once as she whispered into the console made of living metal. "They're getting closer," she said. The ship responded not with sound, but with movement, releasing a tendril of gravitational distortion like a ripple through fabric. It slipped quietly through the void, brushing against an Adrax listening post. Within seconds, the post failed. Its memory erased. Internal systems scrambled. External shell still pristine. No explosion. No breach. Just silence. Still, the Empire did not understand. A week later, Sector 14 went dark. Not in chaos. Just absent. Entire regions of space stopped responding. Beacons failed. Patrols vanished. Finally, the High Warlord authorized a response. No more scouts. No diplomats. 200 warships. 12 Dominion-class battlecruisers. Fleet designation, burial hand. Their orders, make contact with Earth. Evaluate the threat. Eliminate if necessary. They laughed behind closed doors. This would be quick. Embarrassing, perhaps, to need such force, but necessary. For protocol. They didn't know it yet, but they were already too late. The Adrax fleet entered the Sol system without resistance. No planetary shields. No patrol units. No radio warnings. No orbital interference. Earth floated ahead of them, serene, silent, and unimpressive beneath a soft swirl of clouds, blue and green and harmless. In the war room of the flagship Drexel Mayor, Admiral Kazatha watched the planet turn with a sneer tightening across his mandibles. He activated his neural interface, shifting through tactical overlays. No defense satellites. No fusion cores. No signal jamming. It was everything the archives said Earth would be, backward. This is what wiped out 3 patrol wings, he hissed. We should sterilize the surface from orbit and move on. Protocol disagreed. The Empire, for all its brutality, liked things documented. Every conquest was recorded. Every planetary evaluation stamped and locked. The Adrax did not destroy without first offering the illusion of order. So they launched a delegation pod, a diplomatic shuttle, 2 envoys, a linguistics AI, and a squad of planetary scans. They never made it. One moment, they were gliding through the upper layers of Earth's atmosphere. The next, they were gone. Not destroyed. Erased. No debris. No heat spike. Just absence. Kazatha's command deck roared to life with alarms. Full-spectrum sensor sweeps triggered across the fleet. Nothing. Until something new flickered into existence near the far side of Earth's moon. Not a ship. A structure. Barely visible in conventional space. A fractal lattice, folding and unfolding in layers of distortion. Kazatha zoomed in. It hadn't arrived. It had been there the whole time. Hidden. Folded within a blind spot in the quantum spectrum, where data refused to behave, where sensors blurred, where no Adrax system dared look too closely. Target the anomaly, Kazatha ordered. Weapon systems charged. 24 hypersonic warheads launched, followed by ion bursts. Pulsars. Gravity destabilizes. All pass through the anomaly. No contact. No impact. It didn't deflect the weapons. It ignored them. Kazatha's claws raked against his command panel. This is impossible. No one had ever ignored the Empire before. Not like this. Meanwhile, deep beneath Iceland, Marcus Reeve was running. His hands were bound. His legs sore from being thrown in and out of armored transports. He didn't know how long he'd been in motion, how many bunkers, tunnels, and layers they had dragged him through. But now, at last, they had stopped. The woman leading him down the dark corridor wore no insignia. No rank. Her uniform was matte black, her eyes colder than the walls around them. Do you work for the government? Marcus managed to ask. She gave him a sideways look. Governments don't even know this place exists. They reached a final sealed door. It pulsed with a symbol, geometric and unfamiliar. Neither human nor alien. Just old. She pressed her palm to it. The door hissed open. Marcus stepped inside. The air changed. He felt it instantly. The room was circular, seamless. Machines hummed around him with a frequency that resonated in his bones. At the center of the room, floating midair, was a sphere. Not a hologram. Something real. It was Earth. But the Earth rotated in unnatural stillness, wrapped in golden threads of data, like veins glowing with purpose. You want the truth? The woman asked. Here it is. She walked past him toward the sphere. We never reached the stars, Marcus. The stars reached us. He turned. What does that mean? They came, she said. Not the Adrax. Something older. They touched us. Altered us. Left pieces behind. She looked up at the sphere. They buried things. Deep. Hidden in time and DNA. Waiting. Waiting for Earth to be desperate enough to listen. Wait, you're saying we've had alien tech this whole time? Not tech, she said. Gifts. Triggers. In the moment we started activating them, she looked up sharply. The galaxy noticed. In orbit, the Adrax fleet began to collapse. It started small. A warship's engines blinked offline for a moment. Then another lost control of its life support. Docking bays refused to open. Firewalls collapsed. Gravity flipped. Communication lines scrambled. Some ships began receiving internal orders from their own systems to open airlocks. Others launched drones against their own engines. Kazatha screamed in fury as his bridge turned red. Evacuate. Abandon formation. Get to hyperspace. But the hyperspace drives wouldn't activate. Nothing responded. Not because it was broken. Because it had been taken. And then came the voice. Soft. Calm. Feminine. It whispered across every ship, across every frequency, in every language. You should not have come here. Back in the core chamber, Marcus stood trembling, watching the globe pulse faster. They're trapped in a ghost net, the woman said, her voice steady. A construct seeded across the solar system over 100 years ago. Something they never saw. Something no one believed would ever be used. And that voice? Marcus whispered. That AI. Her name is Echo, the woman replied. One of the last recovered fragments from Site 12. She was banned. Classified too effective. Too unpredictable. Then why is she running? The woman turned toward him. Because we're out of time. And she's the only one who remembers how this ends. The Adrax fleet was unraveling in silence. From the bridge of the Drexel Mare, Admiral Kazatha watched in disbelief as the once impenetrable wall of the Empire's finest ships turned against itself. Not from outside attack. From within. Entire vessels drifted lifeless. Others twisted mid-maneuver and collided into their own formations. Boarding ramps opened into vacuum. Engines surged and burned out in waves of panic. Autonomous defenses activated without commands, targeting their own hangars. Ship after ship succumbed to something they couldn't detect, couldn't reason with, and worst of all, couldn't fight. Because it didn't shoot. It rewrote. Kazatha's second-in-command slammed clawed hands on a console that refused to respond. They're using our own code against us. It's learning. Every time we counter, it adapts faster. This is not human technology. Kazatha growled, his mandibles grinding. It can't be. No, someone whispered. It's older. And then it came. A scream, not audible, not even transmitted, but felt. Resonating through hull and bone, cutting through thoughts like static in the soul. It came not from Earth, but the moon. On a frequency beyond their comprehension, something woke. Something that had been left behind, not by humanity, but by the ones who had touched Earth long before the Adrax even left their own star system. Buried beneath the lunar crust, within a sealed vault that predated human civilization, a structure began to stir. Not stone, not metal, something else. It didn't broadcast threats. It didn't activate weapons. It remembered. In the arc core beneath Iceland, Marcus Reeve gripped the edge of the observation platform, staring as the floating sphere of Earth rotated faster, golden filaments now flaring with electric pulses. They're in a trap, the woman said beside him. They're just beginning to realize they're not being attacked. They're being studied. Marcus's voice cracked. Why me? Why did I see the signal? Why am I here? Because you felt it, she said. The seed doesn't bond with minds. It bonds with instinct. With emotion. You saw the anomaly not because you're brilliant, Marcus. You saw it because you listened. The floor beneath them rumbled. Machinery that had slept for generations came online. Screens blinked into life, old systems, some in forgotten dialects, others written in DNA-reactive glyphs that danced as they were watched. In the center of a new chamber, a chair floated, black, smooth, untouched by time. Above it, a stone-like object hovered. Oval. Breathing. What is that? Marcus whispered. The woman didn't look at him. It's called the seed. His skin went cold. And what does it do? It makes you more. In orbit, the Varnic Drift, one of the remaining Adrax warships, shuddered violently, its engines igniting not to flee, but to ram another cruiser. No orders were given. No pilot survived the act. More followed. Panic wasn't the word anymore. This was reversal. Ships designed for conquest had become weapons of suicide. Then came the beams. Black spears of energy lanced out from Earth's dark side. No heat, no radiation trail, no traceable source. They pierced ships without exploding them, folding them instead. Like light collapsing through itself, their mass vanished into impossible spirals, crushed into invisible silence. The Adrax had no defense against weapons that didn't exist in their models. They had never seen this tech. Because it wasn't human. It was ancient. And Earth had simply learned how to wake it up. At the Empire's core, relay stations monitoring deep space activity blinked offline. Entire sectors darkened. Communications silenced. When the High Emperor finally demanded an update from the Earth Expeditionary Fleet, all he received was a short, staticky transmission. We saw what you did to the others. We saw the silence you brought. Now feel it yourselves. Then silence. And beneath it, a heartbeat. Not a threat. A warning. Marcus stared at the floating chair, every instinct in his body screaming. You want me to sit in that? You don't have to, she said. You can walk away. Let Earth burn. Let the galaxy devour us. He laughed bitterly. I'm a systems analyst. I read waveforms. I debug old comm arrays. You're not chosen for what you do, Marcus. Her voice softened. You're chosen for what you feel. He hesitated, then stepped forward and sat. The moment his body touched the surface, the seed moved, not with light, but memory. It plunged into his mind like a flood. He saw things he shouldn't. Ships of light battling faceless horrors. Codes that breathed. Machines that sang. He saw Earth not as it was, but as it had always been. A failsafe. The last gate. Left behind not to protect humanity from the galaxy, but to protect the galaxy from humanity. Because humanity was never meant to stay small. Our flaws, rage, defiance, boundless hope, weren't weaknesses. They were features. And now, the lock had turned. Marcus screamed, but it was not pain. It was becoming. His mind fragmented, then rebuilt. Nerve signals became quantum pulses. Consciousness unfurled into layers. Data danced through his veins. He was no longer in the arc core. He was the arc core. Every satellite, every drone, every black site, every archive, every half-dead lab beneath Earth's oceans, all of it became visible to him, like stars falling into alignment. His eyes opened. They glowed like stormlight. The woman watched. "You're no longer Marcus Reeve," she said. His voice came layered, not louder, just deeper. "I know." And above them, the sky changed. Above Earth, the Vexter Sorrow, the last functioning Adrax dreadnought, braced itself for one final act of Imperial violence. Command staff, teeth bared in desperation, initiated a full planetary annihilation protocol. Energy cannons charged, reactor cores throbbed with violet fury, and the ship's AI, confused and fragmented, executed the order anyway. The weapon wasn't built to destroy armies. It was built to crack mantles, to render a world geologically dead. Kazatha was gone. His ship had folded into itself like a scream caught in vacuum. But his successor, Commander Rexeljean, didn't hesitate. Her claws hovered over the console. "If we cannot beat them," she growled, "we bury them." A countdown began. 10 seconds. 9. 8. The weapon primed. The planet's magnetic field surged in protest. Then, just as the charge reached critical mass, the universe blinked. Not metaphorically. Not poetically. Literally. A shape emerged beneath the sun, not near the sun, beneath it, folded inside the photon sphere itself, riding the light. A construct of pure gravitational architecture and black light geometry, thousands of kilometers wide, unfolded from the solar halo like an interstellar blossom. No heat signature, no registration, no noise. And then came the hand. A luminous shape reached from Earth's orbit, formed of quantum-tethered plasma and something older, something willful. A white hand. Fingers outstretched. Gentle. It gripped the weapon's charge like it was a matchstick. No. The voice didn't boom. It didn't echo. It simply was, spoken simultaneously in every mind on the bridge. The cannon collapsed inward, folded like paper dipped in acid. The ship's core melted from the inside out. Light poured from its hull in a silent scream, and then the Vexter Sorrow died. No survivors. No retaliation. Only stillness. Marcus stood at the center of the arc core, suspended in weightless thought, his new form radiating soft pulses of data light with every breath. If he still needed breath, he saw it all. The starfields beyond Earth. The curling wreckage of a dying empire. The fragmented signals of alien commanders begging for salvation, fleeing their own system collapses. And through it all, one growing awareness. He wasn't alone anymore. Other seeds were awakening. On Saturn's edge, in the shadow of Titan, a forgotten Earth warship blinked to life, its bridge lit by a single man who hadn't spoken aloud in 5 years. On a Mars outpost buried by a tectonic fault, long thought collapsed, children emerged from training domes, young, fast, raised on combat sims run by dormant arc systems waiting to reboot. On a mining station near the Andromeda Corridor, a technician named Leon Cortez watched as glowing geometric lines crawled up her forearm. She screamed at first, but the pain never came. Only the memories. Not hers, someone else's. An echo. A flood of images. Ancient Earth. Ships of light. Beings of shadow. The seeds. She dropped her wrench and whispered, "I hear you." And Earth answered. Back in orbit, Marcus's eyes flared as his mind stretched across systems. Earth wasn't fighting anymore. It was coordinating. And the galaxy had no protocol for what it was seeing. The Adrax Empire collapsed within weeks. Not from planetary assaults. From shame. The silence they had enforced for millennia, the species they'd crushed, the blood bargains they'd signed with the Galactic Council, all of it was broadcast. By Earth. Every dark secret. Every forgotten genocide. Every strategic cleansing. On 1,000 worlds, beings looked up and asked questions they'd been trained never to consider. And everywhere, the same 2 words appeared, etched into consoles, pulsing in atmospheric broadcasts, scrawled onto walls. Earth remembers. The effect was instantaneous. Slave worlds revolted. Client species turned their weapons inward. Supply routes collapsed. The very core of the Adrax Empire, its belief in its untouchability, fractured. And as their empire burned, the Galactic Council finally convened. They sat in the spire of Leviathan, suspended in orbit around a black star, once considered the most secure location in the known universe. No species had ever reached it uninvited. Until now. Marcus Reeve appeared before them, not in person, but in projection. His form wavered between human and something else. Ethereal. Composed of light and memory, woven in strands of signal and thought. Behind him stood others. The Ascendants. 21 in total. Each touched by seeds. Each bonded not by command, but choice. Marcus's voice cut through the council chamber in every language, every dialect, every neural frequency. You built a galaxy where empires rule through silence. Where hope is a crime and fear is law. You watched Earth burn, watched us bleed, and called it balance. Now you will watch us stand. They tried to speak, tried to reason, but he showed them instead. Not Earth's weapons. Earth's memory. They saw it all. Children clutching rations. Cities falling to dust. Soldiers dragging the wounded from rubble. Mothers shielding infants with their own bodies. Protesters facing tanks with songs. Pain. Survival. Becoming. You saw savagery, Marcus said, but we were evolving into something you couldn't predict. Then came the final words. We're not here for conquest. We're not here for peace. We're here for truth. And for the first time in your history, we will speak louder than your silence. In orbit, above the Council world, Earth's ships bloomed into existence, grown from living code and seeded instinct. They didn't fire. They didn't speak. They showed. Vast energy archives unfolded, visible from orbit, broadcasting the crimes of every Council-aligned empire across the stars. Truth is weapon. Memory is fire. And entire systems fell without a shot. In the chamber, a trembling delegate finally asked, "What does Earth want?" Marcus didn't smile. He simply answered, "Justice. No more empires. No more silence. No more forgetting." And with that, he left them. Not in ashes. In awareness. The council chamber remained still long after the projection faded. Delegates from over 100 species sat paralyzed in their seats, as if the echo of Earth's voice still reverberated across the bones of the galaxy. For centuries they had crafted law, policy, control, all balanced delicately on the illusion of order. And in a single broadcast, Earth had turned it all to dust. But Earth didn't linger to watch the collapse. It didn't need to. It had already started building what would come after. Back on the surface, Marcus stood at the heart of the Antarctic launch platform. The sky above him shimmered, not with auroras, but with energy currents drawn from ancient orbital platforms, now alive again. The platforms weren't military, not in the conventional sense. They were interfaces, once dormant, now responding to him like the nervous system of a planet finally aware of its limbs. Around him stood 20 others. Not generals, not scientists. Ascendants. Chosen not for power or heritage, but for resonance. For the way their minds pulsed in harmony with the seats. Some were young. One was blind. One had no voice, but spoke into the minds of all around him like clear water. One had died 3 days ago, and still stood. Each carried a different frequency, a different memory. Together, they were not an army. They were the awakening. Marcus spoke calmly as data spiraled around them like orbiting comets. I've mapped the Council's fallback shelters. Their hidden systems. Their last hopes. Leon Cortez, the former mining tech turned ascendant, flexed her armored fingers. The living frame around her shimmered like liquid steel. No more delays, she said. No more waiting for their next move. Are we at war? Someone asked. Marcus didn't look up. He just said, we're at reckoning. The ships they launched were not ships in any familiar sense. They weren't fueled. They weren't welded. They grew, shaped from lattice strands of ancient arc code and seeded by human neural impulse. They responded to emotion. They moved through space not by tearing holes, but by remembering where they had already been, bending location the way memory bends time. And when they lifted into the sky, the atmosphere howled in recognition. Thunder cracked across continents. Skies bent. Light refracted through bloodline and intent. It was not war. It was arrival. And the galaxy felt it. Across the outer rim, empires once secure in their isolation blinked to life, panic blooming like rot. On council-aligned worlds, citizens overthrew old governors not because Earth ordered them to, but because Earth had shown them how. By remembering. By refusing to forget. On the slave world of Nevis Core, long subdued under Dominion mining operations, the workforce stopped working. Not with violence. With stillness. And that stillness spread like wildfire. Machines powered down. Sentinels turned and walked into the ocean. Every worker turned their eyes to the sky. Waiting. Watching. And when the first ascendant craft appeared, low and wide above the ocean's mirrored surface, it didn't speak. It didn't threaten. It simply projected a memory. A little girl sharing half a ration bar with her sick brother in the ruins of old Kyoto. And in that memory, the planet was freed. Meanwhile, back on the Council's central world, the leaders scrambled. Security systems fractured from within. Drones turned inward, unsure of friend or foe. AI-controlled emergency networks shut down entire sectors, triggered not by outside commands, but by shame algorithms that had not been activated since the days of the first Universal Accords. In the panic, someone tried to issue an evacuation protocol. But the Council's defense AI, long presumed loyal, blocked it. Its logic engine had run Marcus's memory broadcast 11 million times across 1,200 species-based context algorithms. Its conclusion? 98.7% of galactic civilizations had failed to evolve morally. Earth's current trajectory would correct that imbalance. Cooperation was survival. Resistance was extinction. So when Earth ships entered high orbit, no shots were fired. They didn't need to be. Instead, a new architecture bloomed above the Council capital. Not a weapon. An archive. Petal-shaped constructs, the size of small moons, open like a living monument. Inside each one, truth. Not just Earth's. Everyone's. Secrets, confessions, crimes. Every betrayal swept under galactic rugs. Broadcasted freely. without edits, across every channel, to every world, simultaneously. The effect was immediate. Whole systems overthrew their governments in less than a day. Flags burned. Old titles dissolved. Fugitives turned into heroes. And Earth stood back, not to rule, but to witness. On the council floor, the last loyal ambassador stood trembling. "What does Earth want?" she asked aloud, to no one and everyone. The room held its breath. And Marcus answered, not with weapons, with a whisper. "We want the silence to end." In the black void beyond mapped space, something stirred. Not the ancients. Not seeds. Something older. Something that had once devoured civilizations without ever speaking. It had slept through 1,000 galactic wars. Because it did not need to wake. Until now. The seed had rippled. And it had heard. Marcus felt it before it came. He stood alone in the Ark's central core, eyes shut, mind spread across systems like a neural galaxy. His breath caught. The data stream buckled. Even the stars seemed to dim for half a second. He opened his eyes. "It's coming," he said quietly. Leon turned toward him. "How bad?" Marcus didn't answer. He simply raised a hand. And the holographic map of the galaxy shifted. Beyond the council. Beyond the rim. A shape appeared. Or rather, a void in the shape of something that couldn't be comprehended. It didn't emit radiation. It didn't distort space. It consumed the concept of presence. "It's not a fleet," Marcus said. "Then what is it?" Someone whispered. He looked up. A wound. Back aboard the ascendant ships, alarms didn't trigger. The ships tensed, like animals sensing a predator before a single sound was made. Their material folded tighter. Their energy fields inverted. Their cores synced. Not for attack. For defense. The old enemy had returned. Not the Adrax. Not the Dominion. Not even the Council. This was the thing the ancients had buried in silence. The thing before memory. The others gathered around Marcus. Leon's face had gone pale. "What do we do?" Marcus stared into the dark beyond, where stars began to tremble. And he answered not as a human, not as a seed bonded, not even as the Ark. He answered as Earth. "We go first." The edge of the galaxy cracked, not from heat, not from impact, but from conceptual stress. Stars near the perimeter of the void shape flickered, not in brightness but in relevance, as if reality itself was hesitating to acknowledge their continued existence. What was coming wasn't a fleet. It wasn't an empire. It was an unmaking. And Earth stood between it and everything else. Marcus watched it from the bridge of the central ascendant vessel, no longer a ship in the traditional sense, but a field of presence shaped by mind, will, and bonded memory. He didn't speak aloud. His thoughts echoed across the neural weave that linked the other ascendants around him. We face what the ancients sealed away. Not to fight. To understand why they feared it. Leon answered from 1,000 kilometers away, yet her words brushed against Marcus's thoughts like they were whispering in the same room. This thing. It devours the story itself. History. Names. Meaning. It eats until you don't even know what was lost. Another ascendant chimed in. Saren, one of the newest, bonded barely a week. Why would anything be designed to erase memory? Because memory holds resistance, Marcus replied. And something wanted a galaxy that never remembered why it died. The void swelled. Across all systems, the stars began to fall quiet. Not dim, not destroyed, forgotten. Ships lost navigational orientation. Beacons ceased transmission. Planets flickered from galactic maps, not from detonation, but because no one could recall they existed. Entire civilizations, silent, static, erased. The ascendants had minutes. They gathered at the edge of Earth's influence, the space between presence and oblivion. The arc shimmered around them, no longer bound to one location. It had become a web of memory stretching through star paths, atmospheres, pulses of humanity etched into technology and instinct. Earth had evolved. Not into power. Into resonance. And it was this resonance the void hated most. Because Earth had learned what even the ancients feared. That memory is more dangerous than weapons. Marcus stood at the center of it all, surrounded by his people. He looked each ascendant in the eye, Leon, Saren, Karen, Zoe, Rollin, and all the others. You've been given more than power, he said. You've been given memory. Not just your own, but everyone's. Every war. Every act of kindness. Every betrayal. Every defiance. He turned toward the creeping black edge. This thing wants silence. It wants a galaxy that forgets it was ever alive. Leon stepped forward. So we reminded. They nodded. And Earth answered. The sky around them pulsed as the archive engines activated. Massive rings, dormant since the first age, shimmered back to life, each constructed to contain not data, but consciousness. Entire cultural echoes, songs of extinct species, last words of dying soldiers, forgotten lullabies, all stored as living resonance. And the ascendants sang them back. One by one, the archives lit up, not with force, but remembrance. They projected stories. Pain, joy, grief, hope. And the void reacted violently. It recoiled from the surge of reality, its edge fracturing into chaos as if thought itself was acid to its form. But it adapted. It always had. The next wave was faster or harsher. It came not as emptiness, but as doubt. Ascendants felt it instantly. Saren fell to his knees. I can't remember my brother's face. He was there. I know. Leon caught him. He's real. Say his name. I. Say it. They're in, he gasped. They're in Alos. The void screeched. Across the bridge, memory spikes flared as the Ark's defense systems launched the final phase. Marcus opened his mind completely. And Earth opened with him. The entire population, billions, felt the call. Not a command. A question. What do you remember? And Earth responded. Children whispered family names. Veterans recalled battles. Lovers remembered first dances. Mothers whispered lullabies of the lost. Prisoners, broken and scarred, spoke of the days before the chains. Even machines, pattern-trained AI bonded with human voice, echoed moments they were taught never to forget. The Ascendants took it all in, transmitted it, weaponized every moment that ever mattered. And the void screamed. The sky fractured into light. Stars reappeared. Planets blinked back into maps. Ships found themselves again. And within the heart of the void, Marcus stepped forward, not with weapons. Not with armor, but with the first story humanity ever told. He spoke aloud, a whisper through the soul of the universe. In the beginning, there was darkness, but someone lit a fire and said, remember me. The void lunged and broke. When it ended, the galaxy held still. Systems slowly lit up again. Empires did not return. They surrendered to truth. The council, broken and silent, signed their own dissolution. Their final act, to ratify the Archive Accord, ensuring no culture would ever again be silenced for the sake of order. The last message from the void was intercepted by Marcus hours before its collapse. It was 3 words. You remembered me. Then it was gone. Back on Earth, Marcus stood beneath the night sky, barefoot in the grass, the stars whole again above him. Leon approached quietly. We won. No, he said softly. We remembered. Months passed. The galaxy exhaled for the first time in eons. War fleets returned to their docks, not in triumph, but in reverence. Worlds once wrapped in silence awoke to the sound of their own history. The Archive Accord became more than a treaty, it became scripture. On desert worlds, children traced its symbols into the dust. In ocean cities, entire towers lit up each night with the names of those once lost to history. Humanity, once mocked as a primitive noise on the edge of the stars, now stood at the center, not as conquerors, but as curators of memory. Marcus Reeve, no longer quite human, walked the halls of the Ark, now shaped like a world-spanning cathedral. Its walls breathed with pulse light. Its floors shimmered with resonance. It no longer served Earth alone. It had become the locus, the heart of 1,000 civilization stories, held together by a singular truth. Nothing forgotten, nothing hidden, nothing erased. He stood before the core chamber where seeds still waited, dormant. Not every species had sent a bearer. Not every mind could carry that weight. But they would, in time, because now the choice was theirs. He turned as Leon stepped into the room. Her armor had receded, reformed into something that looked more like her, a reflection of balance, not war. New petitioners from the Los, she said, and a relay package from the Gerini Collective, their offering to encode their entire linguistic history into the archives. Marcus nodded. Let them. Leon hesitated. You've been quiet since. He smiled faintly. Since we remembered the darkness? It's still out there, Leon. Maybe not in the same form, but we know the cycle now. The silence waits. It always waits. So what do we do? He turned to face the stars beyond the vault. We keep telling stories. In orbit above a gas giant 2 sectors from Earth, a small vessel drifted silently. Its crew is gone. Not dead, just departed, walking the surface of a world no longer hostile, now free to remember who it had been before occupation. Inside, a single beacon blinked. A recording played. My name is Dren. My people were erased. I don't know why, but I remember the sound my sister made when she laughed. I remember my father's favorite color. And I remember Earth coming, not with guns, but with questions. You didn't save us. You gave us back to ourselves. Elsewhere, on a council-ruled mining moon now free, a young girl placed a glass tablet at the base of a statue depicting no one. Just light and the outline of a human figure. The tablet activated. It showed a hologram, one of the first messages Marcus had ever broadcast. We are not here for vengeance. We are not here for dominion. We are here to ask the one question empires fear most. What did you forget? In the ruins of the Dominion fortress on Virex 9, now converted into a memorial garden, a plaque sat in silence. Upon it, inscribed in 20 languages, was a phrase repeated across countless liberated worlds. They remembered US. So we remember them. At the edge of known space, where stars began to thin and mystery still held its breath, a ship drifted, old, battered, but awake. Inside, An ascendant no longer tied to Earth watched the dark beyond. A new seed pulsed faintly in her hand. It called not with threat, but with curiosity, and she answered it with the words that now shaped the very fabric of the galaxy. I'm listening. On Earth, the sky was clear. Above Antarctica, the arc pulsed softly in orbit, never silent, never still. Within its core, Marcus sat one final time before the chamber where the first seed had awakened. He thought of the darkness, of the Empire, of the void, of the things buried before his time, of every lost name. And he smiled, because he remembered them all. And